Objective Skill Podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 48, Show Me the Money. Show me the money. Come on, have you not seen Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
You meant to do the catchphrase with me.
I don't know the catchphrase.
I've just said it, show me the money.
Oh.
I mean, you sat on a couch, you could have jumped up and down like Tom Cruise did in the movie and everything. Very disappointed.
Use your imagination, pretend I am.
So we're going to be talking all things, I suppose, monetization, I suppose is the way we talked about it prior to recording, about what's happening within the gaming community at large, about prizes, about streams, about...
I just thought it might be worth having a chat about how the monetization of gaming is actually impacting gaming.
Yeah. So, and that stretches, like I've just said, not just to prizes and awards for players, but
it's
the community at large. Advertising, sponsorships. I mean, we've seen the ETC just finish with sponsors for most of the major teams, us among them.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into that topic of money and gaming, we are going to do a quick roundup of some of the stuff that's been happening in the last couple of weeks. The first things first, the ETC, the European Team Championships, have been and gone. Mm-hmm. The Australians went over, did reasonably well on the singles. I think Liam Hackett was the highest finished Aussie to finish the singles event. I think he finished around 10th. But more importantly, we move into the team event. And Australia went 4 wins, a draw and a loss. The loss was in the final round on the top table, playing for first. Yeah. I stayed up following it along as best I could the whole night.
And you are feeling very sorry for yourself as a result of that today?
Yeah, tired. And
you know the result wouldn't have changed if you'd seen it at 7 o'clock.
No, but it's important to know.
2 a.m.
It's important to know. So congratulations to the boys. They finished 4th in the end. We did a live stream on the whole process and the final round that we talk about on our Facebook page, if you want to go and check that out. It meant that we, without winning...
Facebook was done on the 11th of August.
Yes. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. If you aren't familiar with some of the back-end work as a TO, we always find that part of it really interesting about how, particularly when you don't know who's going to win, you can kind of start making educated guesses as to who's going to end where, depending on what happens. And we spent about 40 minutes talking about that. Unfortunately, because the wins that Australia had were quite close wins across the preceding 4 games, because we drew round 1 and then won rounds 2 through 5, it meant that going into that final round with England, if we didn't win, even a draw would have seen us potentially miss out on a podium because of the other teams had such high battle points. Now, as it stood...
Because it was counted back on battle points.
Yeah, so round points first, then battle points. What was really interesting when the final scores came in, Poland absolutely demolished the United States, like horrifically so, and Russia beat Finland. So if we had drawn with England... it was an 88-72 round. They only beat us by like 3 points.
Yeah.
If we'd managed to pull a draw out of that round, that would have seen Russia win, followed by England, and then we would have finished 3rd, based on all the results that we actually had come through. So that would have been a top 3 finish. As it stood, we were 4th place, tied on 3rd with Poland, and then counted back on battle points. We ended up 4th. Denmark 5th, the US 6th, Spain 7th, and Finland 8th. What was also interesting is if Spain had won their final game, which I don't believe they did, I'll just double check. Spain had a potential to... Yeah, see, Spain drew with Belarus. If they had beaten Belarus, that would have given them 9 round points as well. And it would have meant they would have...
Jumped up.
They would have been fighting with us for 4th, and we potentially dropped to 5th, depending on how much they win by.
Yeah.
As it stood, they were about 10 points shy. So, really interesting finale to watch. Full credit to Team England, who not only took out the 40k ETC, but also the World Cup, which is the combination event of Age of Sigmar, the Ninth Age, Underworlds, Flames of War. I think they won Age of...
It does make sense that they would. This is the country that most of those are developed in. Like they should have some kind of advantage, don't you think?
Well, you'd think so.
Mm.
But they won the majority. They took the Champions Trophy for the weekend as a country,
Also,
and then they won the 40K.
Yeah, don't want to take anything away from the Aussies. Like,
no, absolutely
honestly, this is an absolutely fantastic result. And while everyone who we know was all of the Australians we know were gunning for them to actually win their round so that they won the event, to come in fourth is absolutely amazing.
Well, what was amazing watching it live last night, the Team England captain, non-playing, was streaming stuff as the games went.
Mm-hmm.
4 games in, they were 80-0. So they were absolutely destroying us.
Mm.
And they're going, we just need 6 points to win. We've got like 4 games in play. Like, this is a breeze. They won it by 88 points to 72. So they got 8 points off of those final 4 games. And there was one game still to score. And it was Nick Nanavati, who was playing for England, versus Liam Hackett from Queensland. And Nick scored 3 points. It was 17-3 loss.
Yeah.
And they needed him to score... if he'd only scored 1 point...
It would have been a draw.
Yeah, they still would have won. They needed Australia needed a 20-0 to draw the round, which would have upset the apple cart no end. So, props to Nick for pulling out those 3 points, because that looked like a really bad game for him. And, for Liam for pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to try and get as many points out of that as he could. Some really interesting... It was great to have those England videos coming through periodically from their coach, because it meant we got to see the tables on and off.
Mm.
So, yeah, I know the boys all went out last night or this morning, depending on where you are in the world.
Or a couple of days ago, depending on when you're listening to this.
I'm sure it was a big night for the lads. Most of them are due back in Australia sort of Wednesday, Thursday. So around the time of release for this podcast or just after. And we'll try and get a couple of them on the future episodes to have a chat about it. And, talk about their experience in Serbia with the ETC. But congratulations to them all. They all did a great job. And if you want to check out all the round results, all of those are published on the Objective Secure Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
I might do a write-up of each round and look at because we've obviously got the army lists available to us as well. And we might put some posts on the website so you can look at each round and how we paired off. But moving on from that, we've got another team event on less than a week away, the WATC.
Mm-hmm.
96 players. We've got one more day of mandatory corrections that need to go through today. I've got to do some updates and stuff for the army lists. And then we should be good to go.
So it's happening on the 17th and 18th of August. So if you are playing, you will see us there. If you're not playing and you are in WA, come and say hello.
Yep.
Check it out.
We've got the usual... Emma and I will be streaming bits and pieces across the day. I was considering bringing the webcam and a camera, tripod and whatnot, and setting up a camera to run for one of the tables.
You say that every time, and then you get there and you go, oh, it's just not going to work.
Well, the biggest problem I have is the audio, because the room is noisy.
Yeah.
And we'd obviously need to mic up players to get anything sort of valuable out of it, and then you need someone managing it to talk about it, or at least have a microphone themselves to talk about what's going on at the table, which takes one of us away from the whole day. So still playing around with that idea, but if we can get some video of some of the games happening, particularly in the final round on day 2, then we'll share that as much as we can. So, yeah, it's Australia's biggest team event. So we're going to have a bunch more players next year. We've already got some East Coast teams wanting to come over and have a crack at the prize. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting full weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got our next varsity club night happening tonight at the time of recording.
So by the time you're listening to this, you've missed it.
Yep. We're hoping to continue. After tonight, we'll know whether we're going to continue once a month.
Mm-hmm.
But the first 2 have been really successful. I have no reason to think this will be any different. So hopefully we'll see a bunch of you there tonight and play some games and hang out and have a good time. We've also seen there's been a whole bunch of releases this week from Games Workshop. All the pre-orders for the Space Marine stuff have gone up. There's been a whole bunch of leaks, I suppose is the best way to describe it, of the new codexes coming out. There's a lot of nerd rage, shock horror.
I was just thinking that. I was like, don't say it, Emma. Don't say it. It's just... Sometimes when there are new things being released, you do see a lot of excitement, but it's really interesting seeing, like, most of the time, and I suppose because people generally share that kind of stuff on social media, but it's really interesting seeing the really strong negative reactions that people have to change.
What I found really interesting is about a week ago at time of recording, Games Workshop pulled a whole bunch of kits off the website, and the sky was falling. They're deleting these kits. We're not going to be able to buy them anymore. There's all Space Marine rhinos and core lines. Yeah. And all it was a repack. And they all went back onto the website on Saturday with all the pre-orders in their nice new packaging. And clearly Games Workshop have been listening to the concerns of the players, because one of the concerns was we're going to get rid of all the old Space Marines and you're only going to be able to have Primaris in the future. So when the page numbers and references came out for the new codex, it was, there's 20-something data sheets missing. They're starting to delete Space Marines. Yeah. No. They've just put all the special characters and put them into their relevant supplement books. So all the Ultramarines ones have gone in the Ultramarines book, the White Scars have gone in that book, and so on. So that's all the named characters have been put in their own supplement books with their chapter rules. So that's why there's less data sheets. Oh, okay, fair enough. Oh, they're deleting all these tanks. No, they're not. They're just repackaging them. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, no, you can. You just, wait until you get the book. And then I feel like Games Workshop went, okay, everyone's really worried that we're going to make all these Space Marine armies that have been around for 20 years redundant. So then they've come back and made changes to the rules that will now make you want to take standard Space Marines alongside Primaris, because now drop pods are going to be a thing again. You can only put standard Space Marines in drop pods. The new Impulsor tank can only carry standard Primaris. It can't carry aggressors. There's a few other things. And of course, the first comments are, drop pods are broken. We can't, it's going to be horrific. No, they've made changes to make them useful and viable again, and to make your old Marines useful and viable again, which is what you all wanted, and now you're all upset by it.
Not all. That is a sweeping generalisation, but
my entire feed says all.
Yeah, well, that's because people who are happy don't generally post about it.
Yeah.
So, but it has been interesting watching that response. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll have a copy of the Codex on release day on the coming Saturday, so we can have a quick look at that in the future episode. It's less data sheets to go through. So I think it's 76 data sheets as opposed to 90 something. Well, that's it. The Genestealer one had the Genestealer one had 25.
I was going to say, a dozen.
So we'll see.
So that's the next 10 episodes sorted, just going through that.
Yeah, look, it could be. I mean, we could do...
let's not make it
do a HQ episode, and then a Troops episode, then an Elites episode, then a Fast Attack episode.
You find someone else to record that with.
Oh, okay. So we'll have a whole bunch of Space Marine releases coming up. Apparently the sky is going to fall and Space Marine's going to win every tournament, and there are a few very upset players from different factions. Oh, they're better than my faction. They do this.
All right, we've covered this. The sky's falling. It'll probably all be okay.
Yeah, it'll probably all be okay. Yeah, pretty much. Another little interesting tidbit of news that I saw this week was the London GT being announced with all their information and whatnot for 2020. And they've managed to cause controversy yet again.
I haven't seen this.
Because they basically started selling tickets, then released the players pack, and then it appears, now it's screenshots that I've seen, I can't confirm or deny that they've actually done this.
But we're going to talk about it anyway.
It appears that they have then modified the players pack after release to ban all of the beta data sheets. So people have bought their tickets, have seen the players pack, have gone, cool, I can take my... it all revolves around Custodes,
so in
Forge
the
World
original
units.
Players pack,
There was no mention of it.
Right, okay, so they've just clarified.
Well, they've added a line that says you may not use this.
So I'm counting that as clarifying.
But it's upset an awful lot of people who wanted to obviously take these units that, Australia, particularly here on the West Coast, has seen the Orions and the Caladiuses now for nearly 12 months being actively used in the competitive scene. The US is starting to pick them up, and obviously it's hit the UK as well. There were players buying tickets to take these beta rules, and now they can't take them. So that's upset a few people. It also...
I can understand that. Like, I know that we think of beta rules as almost pre-release rules. So these are going to be here to stay.
Yeah.
So we use them as, like, once they're released as beta rules, then we implement them into our events.
Yeah.
But that's only one way of looking at it. Another way to look at it is we're playtesting these rules and we don't know how they work. We could be modifying, we could be refining them. And so until they actually come in and become official rules, we're not going to put those into our event.
Well, the main reason most of the players are upset is they've specified it's only beta data sheets, not beta rules. So they've deliberately isolated the units rather than the core rules. And they've specifically in their example mentioned Adeptus Custodes. So that's upset those players because now they feel like they're being singled out because they're mentioned in the reference.
Would it have felt better if they'd mentioned, like, given 3 or 4 different examples instead of just one?
So would it have been better for them to only have, or have more than one faction? Yeah, probably. But the problem is most of those data sheets aren't betas anymore. So it certainly feels like it's singling out. I'm just going to...
Well, I can see you scrolling and you're looking at something, but what can you see the benefits being of actually not allowing those data sheets? Like, why do you think they would have made that decision?
The general consensus in the community, for anyone not using them, is those particular Forge World units are either underpriced or overpowered or both. They're not well balanced in any way, shape or form. And I know there's an irony in saying that with any sort of tabletop game because they're not balanced. They can't be balanced. It's too complex. You can get it close, but when you start doing comparisons, particularly for these sort of beta style units, take the Caladius tank, for example, you end up in this situation where when you break the points down for it and compare it to other Imperial vehicles, because ultimately with the Allies rules, you can put it into any Imperial army, it's probably 75 points too cheap, like for other vehicles. So either all the other vehicles are too expensive or it's too cheap. And you can do that with several of those data sheets from the Custodes, the Palace, I think, Palace, small graph tank, and the Orion gunship.
The reality is anyone can put that in their army.
Yeah. Oh, the barrier to entry for most of that, obviously, with Forge World is price.
Yeah, that's right. But it's still an option that's available.
Yeah, but the players obviously get upset because when you've got a vehicle like the Orion, 450 points, just shy of 450 points, it's basically a flying knight with better stats, better rules, harder to hit, can't be charged, and it's cheaper, or the equivalent price of a knight. It's, despite anyone being able to use it in an Imperial army, it still rubs a lot of people up the wrong way because, you know, I don't want to play Custodes, I want to play my army, and why should they get something that's that messed up? Yeah.
So what you're basically saying is that, so either your belief is, or the general consensus is, that the people who are organising the London GT are modifying. Basically, they think that GW has made an error with the points, and so they're modifying it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, TOs have the right to do that. Ultimately, any TO, the ITC events, they change the missions because they don't like the standard missions.
I think there might be a bit different between changing missions and deciding that you can't include something because you think that the points are wrong.
Will they change the rules for terrain? I mean, every TO has the right to run their event however they see fit, and obviously
100%.
players will vote with their feet.
Well, but not if you've already bought tickets.
Well, that's true. But what I think the London GT guys might have missed is the chapter-approved 2018 Sisters of Battle book. Now, I've got it here.
I thought it was the Sisters of Battle that you were opening. I'm like, why are you opening Sisters of Battle if you're talking about Custodes?
So, page 69 of chapter-approved 2018 lists the Sisters of Battle as a beta codex.
Yeah.
And by extension, that means all of the data sheets in here will be beta data sheets, which means that you can't actually use Sisters of Battle from an official published publication from Games Workshop, not even a download from Forge World, which specifies, hey, this is all in testing.
Yeah.
You cannot use Sisters of Battle at the London GT.
So if you're listening to this and you happen to see Mike posting on the London GT page going, so does this mean we can't bring Sisters of Battle?
So they're the only beta data sheets I can find at the moment. Is the downloadable ones from Forge World for the Custodes Forge World units.
Yep.
And the Sisters of Battle. Even the Imperial Knights downloads for the new Imperial Knight variants that they've released, and also the Chaos versions of all of those knights, they're on Warhammer Community and they're not listed as beta. They're just updates.
So really, it is Custodes that have been singled out.
Yeah, and to a less, I'm sure that the Sisters of Battle is caught in the firing line. As
Whether
opposed,
they've actually realised it, because
and that's what I mean. It's probably an unintentional side effect, depending on how they want to. And they're in a really awkward spot there, because if they turn around and say no, you can take Sisters of Battle, you just can't take Custodes, then they are singling that out. If they turn around and say no, you can't run Sisters of Battle, and stick to their guns, then you're removing an entire army from the game. There's no and the only other answer they've got is, okay, we're going to overturn that and you can take beta rules, which
means then they've made another change to a players pack in the lead up. But it's next year's event.
I believe it's next year's event.
Have they had this year's event yet?
Yeah, that was the terrain saga.
Was that this year?
I believe so.
The year is just flying by. I've totally lost all connection with what happened when.
So, yeah, the London GT once again finds itself mired in controversy before we even get there. But we'll see what happens with them.
They're releasing that players pack really early.
Well, they normally happen early in the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know whether you can have a quick look and see.
Literally what I'm doing. My phone's incredibly slow. But yeah, I mean, even if they're running it in January, it's still early.
Most of our events, we try and release the pack somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks out. And there's plenty of places that release the pack later than that, in terms of closer to the event. Part of that's also to do with not wanting to release the pack prior to having changes or FAQs or new codexes come out. It's kind of self-defeating.
Okay, no, it's this year.
Oh, when is the London GT this year for 2019?
13th, 14th and 15th of September. That makes more sense to me.
So just over a month away.
Yeah.
And they've released this. That explains why people are upset.
Yeah, well, I just couldn't understand why they were releasing it now for next year, and I thought that it had been around Showtime last year that this had happened.
Yeah, you're right.
Or just prior to show last year, and I was thinking, was it just prior to show this year, or anyway.
Yeah, and that's where I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so they, from the sounds of it, then they're probably 6 weeks out, and they've released the pack, and like I said, there's a whole bunch of screenshots doing the rounds around the change that they made, but the general gist that we've heard, or that I've read, I should say, is that they released the tickets, then released the pack, then changed the pack after they'd sold out.
So they've sold out?
I believe so. Could be wrong.
How many players have they got?
A couple hundred. It'll be interesting to see how that event goes this year, because obviously there's still a lot of negativity in the community around some of the issues they faced last year. There's a bunch of people who've already said, I went last year, I'm not going again.
Yeah.
And it'll take some time to obviously regain that trust.
Because was last year the first year?
No. I think they've done a couple now. I think this might be their third or maybe their fourth. But, we'll see. We'll keep you posted as we see more from the London GT. Interesting.
So I've gone to a different page, and it's on the same website, and it's saying that it's the 14th and 15th of September. Before it was saying 14th to 16th. Now it's just 14th and 15th.
Well, 14th and 15th is the Saturday, Sunday. So unless there's a bank holiday.
Oh, no, go down a bit further. Oh, no, that's a practice day. I was like, go down a bit further. There's another date. But that's a practice event.
Yeah, unless they've got a bank holiday, perhaps, and they're having a 3-day event. I mean, a lot of these events will run like LVO and whatnot. You'll play the 2 days, and if you qualify for the finals, then you play the third day.
Yeah.
Anyway, we might jump from that as a neat segue into tournaments and prizes and all the monetization that's going to come about from some of these major events, and be back in just a second to chat about it. All right, we're going to talk money, monetization, prizes, and all things not directly related to cost, but all things financial when it comes to tournaments from a player's perspective, and to a lesser extent from the third parties that get involved with tournaments. Ultimately, costs for a tournament always lay in the laps of the organisers for, whether it's a friendly event at a store or whether it's a massive GT convention-style event. The organiser ultimately ponies up that cost. But how do they recover it? And then how do they support it? And then how do they make it worth attendance?
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of questions there.
Well, there is, but I suppose that's not where my mind went when we were talking about this before we started recording, because I actually what I wonder is how the monetization of events actually changes how does that impact on gaming? Yeah,
I think it's important to discuss the prizes and stuff up front and some of the variations we've seen before we look at the monetization component for players, because we have seen an event now released where there's going to be a significant prize pool of cash being given away. But we also need to talk about the monetization in terms of the streaming and sponsors and those sorts of things as well.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the sponsors and then we'll move to the players component at the end?
Yeah, I guess sponsorship's been around forever, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, most of the major countries for the ETC had some sort of, whether it's a local game store.
I was actually thinking even just going back without any of that kind of stuff, going back and thinking about the events that we ran, like when we first started OBSEC, and before that when you were, the first events that you ran for Outpost, we contacted different companies to ask for prize support.
Yeah, that's true.
So we got sponsorship that way, and that, I guess, impacted the impacted the prize pool that we had available.
I think, though, that there's two different kinds of sponsorship there. You've got sponsorship where the organizer goes out, and we get it for show, where we approach different manufacturers of these different games and say, hey, we're running this for, can you help us out with prizes and stuff to give to players? We don't keep any of it. We give it to the players.
The exception of that would be, obviously, we've got a table full of OTP terrain.
Yes, that is true. That our players get to play on.
Yeah, exactly. It gives. We have a fantastic table that's available that we're able to take to events that, as you say, players get to play on, and players get to see what that terrain looks like. So hopefully that's win-win-win.
Hopefully. Then you've got the sponsorships where there is some sort of financial remuneration for the TOs or the players. Now, those we've seen this happen just recently at ETC, where there were financial sponsorships to help teams get to the ETC.
Yes.
And we've also seen in the past teams in Australia sponsor specific players to get them to specific events. So that's always an interesting scenario to have happen, because it can breed some bad blood between players who feel like they should be getting those sponsorships and aren't, where other players are.
It's something I know that I'm going totally off script. Not that we have a script, but going totally off script now and haven't actually spoken to you about. But it's something that I have thought about for show around. So another event that I used to be involved with that I guess I sort of used as my model for show. They do some sponsorships where you can, to try and help people from the country or help people from other states get to the event. So, in a couple of years down the track, I think it would be good to be able to do something like that, where we're able to offer some kind of support for people who would love to be able to get there, but it's financially not able to.
Yeah, absolutely. The third part of sponsorship is remuneration to the organisers. Now, that sponsorship is a really grey one. A lot of the time it comes in the form of advertising and promotional side of things, where the sponsor isn't giving you money. They're tending to buy advertising space, essentially. Yeah. It's less sponsorship and more a sales relationship. There are the odd event that is just, like we just mentioned with OTP Terrain, where they will sponsor with materials and shout-outs and all that other sort of stuff for free. The A case in Olo has given us prizes, and we share his stuff and sponsor as much as there's definitely a mutual relationship there, and we have a few different suppliers in the same sort of boat. We've just struck up a relationship with SMS Paints over in Melbourne, and we've got the first stuff that we're able to give away at show this year as well.
Yeah, that's all giveaways. That's not, nobody's paying us to advertise their product. They're giving
No,
us stuff
they're giving
that
us
we're
stuff,
giving away
and then
to
but then
players.
they're essentially giving us a sponsorship in exchange for us.
Yeah, we don't have to buy prizes because we have stuff coming in that we're able to.
And then in
out.
exchange, we share their stuff, and so there is a relationship there. It's less a sponsorship and more of a, like I said, a sales deal or an advertising deal, I guess.
Yeah, no, I personally don't think so. I disagree with you because for me, sales and advertising is actually financial remuneration, and there's no money involved in any of this.
Well, yeah, of course there is.
Well,
all these products cost money.
Yeah, they do.
They
do cost money. What I'm saying is we're not generating income from it.
No, that's true.
So, and that's what I mean by there's no money involved. Like, nobody is paying us to say a case of good products.
No, that's true.
Olo sent over the original A case when we ran the first Masters.
It was the first show. I think it was.
So he sent that over, and we put it together and tried it out the way that with the magnets to see how it would work. If that had been a rubbish product, there's no way we would have jumped on and said, "Hey, this is awesome," because we'd got one for free.
That's true.
So, whereas I guess if you're paid, then you have some kind of...
You're obligated to say...
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, fair call.
I just really want to put it out there that we're not getting paid to give people's products
out. No. I mean, half the time we buy the products to review them.
Yeah, that's it. 100%.
So, like I say, the sponsorship from the external... components. We sponsored the part of the Australian team. There were about 7 sponsors for the Australian team for the ETC 40K event this year. Beyond Games and Hobby, Godhammer Gaming, Down Under Network, OTP Terrain. Yeah. There are probably a few more. They were the ones that spring to mind instantly. Most of those, there was a combination of the way those sponsorships worked, as far as I'm aware. And it meant that logos went on T-shirts and those sorts of things. And then with the ETC being what it is, most of the guys have 2 or 3 shirts and they swap and trade them over the weekend as well.
Ew.
So those shirts will be here, there, and everywhere.
Bad enough washing your own sweat off a shirt, but to have somebody else's, that's so
No.
gross.
You got to remember with the ETC, most of them aren't wearing their shirt by the end of the first game. Look, they had a push-up competition this year. There's a push-up competition with a bunch of nerds doing push-ups with no shirts on. So
I don't even know how it gets to that.
Alcohol. So in terms of monetization, though, what we have seen recently is a really big push into streaming, I suppose, and video and audio content. So there's a whole bunch of YouTube channels, ours included, that feature reports and reviews and all this other sort of stuff. And then there's a component of the YouTube channels that have a paid, like a premium section, where whether it's through Patreon or their own website or however they choose to set it up, you get access to more video content and more information and so on. Mini Wargaming do it, Tabletop Tactics do it, and so on and so forth. What we've seen recently, though, is a lot of the free Twitch channels and the stuff that you would normally watch the live streams of some of these tournaments start ending up behind a paywall.
Yeah.
The ETC had Glasshammer Gaming out streaming, and when I went looking, I thought, it'll be on Twitch. There's nothing on Twitch. Okay, let's head to Google. And the only way you could do it was joining their Glasshammer Gaming Elite cadre, where it was a paid subscription and you watched it on their website. And I kind of get why they would do that. I mean, they weren't playing. They flew from England across to Serbia to stream it. So they've got costs. But I have no doubt that them requiring it to be paid stopped people. Like if they'd done it as... Maybe they'd done the first day free... and got people interested, and then maybe given them at the moment you've got no reason to go and subscribe because you don't know what you're getting, because there's nothing on the Twitch stream that'll show you what they're doing, what their audio's like, what their videos are like. You know what I mean?
And I wonder how much they were able to generate from sponsorship on the actual, with basically companies having ads on the stream itself.
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly put me off because, like I say, I don't know what I was getting. I think it was like $5 for the month for the subscription, so it's not a huge amount of money.
Okay, I thought it was five. I thought it was $5 per day or per game that you wanted to watch.
I'm 90% sure it was originally I thought it was on Twitch, which is why you'd use Amazon Prime or something like that, and you'd get a month subscription to do it. But it wasn't on Twitch; it was on their own website.
Yeah.
So,
$5, I reckon that's okay.
I did consider it, but like I say, I didn't know what I was getting.
Also, you didn't have time to watch it.
Well, there is that. So they call it the Glasshammer Elite, and I'm just going to bring it up here so we make sure we're giving the right information for Glasshammer. So it includes a discount of products, weekly battle reports, the Elite Facebook page, and all the live streams. Funnily enough, it doesn't actually tell me how much it costs.
Hit join and see what it says. Yeah, I guess I just thought it was...
Okay, so they've got a subscription service that varies. You've got this is all in pounds. It's $2.99, $6.99, $9.99, and $39.99 a month in pounds. If you only go the $2.99, you basically only get access to the Glasshammer live streams. So you can do it cheaply. £3 is what? $5, give or take. If you go to $6.99,
do you have to sign up for a certain amount of time?
It's a bit hard to see here. It does. Yeah, I'd have to go looking through the terms and conditions. But so $5 a month. If you want to take advantage of the other bits and pieces, then you do have to go to the $6.99 or $9.99, where you do get access to everything else, because you get a bigger discount. You get discounts off event tickets, tactics videos, a whole bunch of other stuff. Essentially, you're paying that $5 a month just for their live streams. So I know plenty of people did sign up for the ETC to watch the final, particularly when Australia made it to the final round, because they were streaming the final round. I know Aussies who did go and pay for that to watch it, but there were 10 guys. I saw a photo of someone. One person subscribed and then put it on their 55-inch HDMI TV through like a sync with their device, and then everyone came around and watched it on the big screen and turned it into a party, so that everyone wasn't paying £5.
I think that's quite nice anyway. Turns it into a social experience.
But like I say, it would have been really great if they'd turn around and just streamed day one on their Twitch page for free, to kind of, hey guys, these are the first rounds of the games, or even the singles. If they'd streamed the singles, and then said this is what we're doing, then it would have, I think, given a much.
It's $5. It's less than the cost of a pot of paint.
It is.
Unless you're having to sign up for a whole year. But
it's also, like I say, it's a weird one where you just don't know what you're getting. So I think that we're going to see progressively more and more of those paid Twitch streams and stuff come through, where you'll get a little bit of free content and you get a lot behind a paywall.
Yeah. Because
there's significant costs in producing these channels and maintaining these channels and all the hardware that goes in behind them. So I completely get that.
With what we're looking at for the doing battle reports, which by the way I need to talk to you about whether or not that's happening this week. But for the battle reports that we're looking at doing, if we were to do it the way that you want to, it's going to take you a day to record and then 2 or 3 days to actually edit that together.
Yep.
Not to mention we've had a fairly substantial financial layout for the equipment that we've got, but it's not everything that we would need. As
soon as you go studio quality, you're up 30 grand Australian, easy. Before and that's just cameras and microphones. That's not the laptops and stuff to run everything.
Yeah. So if you're trying to cut it all together and edit it together.
Yeah, it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. So I guess I just wonder. Well, it needs to be paid for.
Yeah, but the thing like a live stream though, once you've got all the hardware and it's all set up, you're paying for your time, the internet connection.
Yeah, I honestly believe that your time should be paid
Absolutely.
for. So these people who are doing the streams, they should be financially remunerated. And if they're finding a way to do it, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And Glasshammer are a well-known brand in the UK. Less so here, unless you sort of follow that UK competitive scene. But yeah, I think that them wanting to assist in covering all their costs and making sure that obviously those flights cost money and there's potentially time taken off full-time jobs to go and those sorts of things. Yeah, it's all justified. But moving on to the last sort of monetization component, which is probably where most of this conversation will sit.
Definitely.
There has been an event announced, which we've hinted at a couple of times on the live streams.
We haven't hinted at it. We've outright said it.
That is true.
There's not been any hinting.
That has posted up in Atlanta, in the States, that they're going to be offering a $10,000 cash prize pool, minimum $10,000 cash prize pool, for a 40K event that's happening in December.
But it's not $10,000 as first prize.
No, so the initial release was $5,000 for first prize, $2.5 for second, and then
$500 for.
Well, the $2.5 was then divided. The remaining $2.5 was then divided between spots 3 through 8, which I can't do the maths on at the moment.
Yeah, no. 300-400.
And then they've since come out and said they're going to. They're looking at best painted and best sports and giving cash prizes for those as well. And it's certainly been divisive in the community as to what that means for players. We try and give as much as we can while obviously covering our costs to our players.
But let's dial that all the way back. So, do you think that it makes a difference when we have, without it being money, do you think it makes a difference to the way that people play when we offer a bigger prize pool?
Yes.
Yeah.
To give an example, I know of several players who have behaved or modified tools in an effort to win events, not here in WA, but have done these things because the prize pool is bigger than it might normally be. There were third-hand accounts coming out from the ETC as early as this morning that there was a player who was caught at the ETC with fudge dice as part one of the teams. Now,
what prize is there for ETC?
Apart from trophies and bragging rights, none.
Okay, so then that may be saying that actually
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But that's what I mean is there's no. I think it's a character-driven thing rather than.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. Do you think it does actually make a difference? Do you think
I think for something yes, I think it makes a difference. But if you're going to do something underhanded, you're just more likely to do it when the prize pool goes up. And in a team environment where maybe a team's in the running for a podium or a top 5 finish or something like that, then people
extra pressure.
Competitive. We've seen it to the best of them on live stream where players do dumb things or behave poorly because they're feeling that pressure and they choose to do something, and everyone goes, "My God, why did you do that?" Like,
did you not realize you were being videoed, for God's sake?
We've seen it plenty of times. So,
I guess I'm just trying to work out where does that impact start. So most of the events that we run don't have prizes. So we're
moving towards that.
A trophy or a medal. That's it.
We started our first event, Masters, had a big collection of prizes to give away.
It did.
And then we had to change venues, and the costs went up, and we've basically.
Well, the prizes for the first one, actually, a lot of that was sponsorship.
We did. Well, we had some of it sponsored, and we had some of it that we paid for.
Yeah. But it helps you increase your prize pool if you can get sponsorship, but you also can't exhaust all your sponsorship.
Exactly.
You have to spread that out. We run quite a few events.
You can't go to one supplier every month
and say, "Hey,
give us $500 a year." Yeah. So we've taken steps, particularly for WATC for 2019 and Masters 2019 will be roughly the same. It includes a guaranteed percentage of ticket sales for prizes for the pool. Now, It gets a bit awkward for WATC because it means we have to come up with 18 prizes because they've got 3 teams of 6.
Yeah.
But we're going to do that. We've organised that. Hopefully they get here in time.
Say I didn't organise that. You organised that. So
it's been ordered and paid for. I'm just waiting for it to turn up.
Great.
So that's sort of the next steps for us is by the time we pay for everything, we work out how much money's left over. And then we've given out prizes for first overalls and that sort of thing. This will be rewarding first, second, and third for teams of 6. So there's a significantly higher outlay there, which is why we guaranteed what the prize pool was going to be. Mm-hmm. It's probably just shy of $1,000 in, is what we're giving. It's $10 a ticket was what we guaranteed. Yeah. 96 players, $960.
It's going to be by the time we've added all the extra bits in and
well, that doesn't include trophies and medals and that sort of stuff.
No.
So, that's. And I know a lot of TOs basically do the same thing. Some of them even go to the extent where as soon as they pay for the venue, they just give everything else away. And some don't even do that, particularly when they're held at stores. It's like, oh, I'm charging you $20 and all of it's going into prize pool. We've been on that soapbox before, though, as to why that's a poor choice.
Yeah, and that's not what we're here for.
No.
So we're here to talk about the implications of, I guess, prize pools and monetary prize pools.
This particular event in Atlanta, though, is going to be this weird combination because they've guaranteed 128 tickets, but then they've turned around and said, we're going to give away 16 tickets for free, 8 of which are going to be to the top-ranked ITC players in the world, and the other 8 of which are going to be given to the influencers and personalities within the community, which is obviously their discretion just to give away from the sounds of it. They've put the ticket prices up to $200 a player, US, which is not insignificant. There are some, like you do get a T-shirt and I think they said 8 dice on the stream and a few other sort of souvenir-y type things, which is great because that means, you can kind of justify part of that $200 if you're going to get $50, $60, $70 worth of bits and pieces. But clearly, obviously, that $200 per person, there's a big chunk of that being used to generate that prize pool. Will it bring the worst out in players if you're giving someone the opportunity to win $5,000? I think so. I think one of the biggest hurdles that we're going to face for this monetization process for players is the lack of judges.
Well, they're saying they're going to have one judge for every 4 players, though, aren't they?
7 tables.
Okay.
So 14.
Originally, I thought I'd read one for every 4.
No, it was the last notice I saw was 1 judge for every 7 tables.
That's still quite high.
It is. Normally it's just the 2 of us in the room for, 40 tables.
Yeah, and as far as judging goes, I'm not exactly useful, but I'm very good at inputting data, and I can hand over a beer like nobody's business.
No, well, the problem is these judges are expected to actively contribute and they're meant to be active judges, not passive judges.
See, I have an issue with that too, so let's come back to that in a minute.
But I do definitely think that as soon as you give someone the opportunity to win money in a situation like, kind of like any sort of, it's not gambling, it's gaming, but it's it's still gambling, essentially.
And I will admit, I have looked into it, and if we were to do something like this, we would need a gaming license.
Yeah.
So, we already pay for a liquor license. To get a gaming license, the restrictions are so much harder. I don't know what the rules are like in America, but over here, it wouldn't be easy.
No. So, we've talked a couple of times about trying to give away airfares and stuff to different events if you win our events.
Yeah.
And these are some of the hurdles that we encounter very rapidly because because of the dollar value attached for that individual prize. It's from
$300.
But it's per individual prize, not the total prize pool, is what I'm saying.
Sorry. If a prize is more than $300, then we have to get a license for it.
Yeah. So for us to give away for the first place team at WATC, for each of them to get sort of, I think it worked out to be like $90-something per person, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even though the combined total prize pool is $900+.
Yeah.
It's if we turn around for Masters and said, okay, guys, we're going to pay for a economy airfare to Melbourne to compete in the National Masters for the winner.
Actually, if they go Tiger Air, it's probably cheaper than the box sets that we're giving out.
Well, no, we'll just give a one-way fare.
Yeah.
And then we'll give a separate one-way fare.
Yeah.
and then one night accommodation, then one night accommodation, then one night accommodation. But yeah, we'd have to work with that, and then obviously that cost then has to be incorporated into the cost of the event. So, like you say, who knows what the rules are in the States, particularly with gambling and casinos and stuff like that, being what they are in America. Who knows?
Well, a lot of these are held in casinos, aren't they? So,
well, this particular event's being held in Atlanta at an esports venue.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because
they'll already have their license.
They probably do, yeah,
stuff.
because they give away all their prizes for that. But I do think that what's going to happen is you're going to have a pool of players turn up that are... Some will be there just because it's another big event in Atlanta. The Warzone Atlanta is only a few weeks prior. Although from the looks of it, it was meant to be the week after Warzone.
Yeah, they've pushed it.
They've pushed it back, working with the guys who run Atlanta, Warzone.
Yeah.
But I do think you're going to have players who potentially come out with nefarious...
you're going to have hardcore gamers playing.
Well, you're also going to have...
I don't think anyone who's just a social gamer is going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to drop $200 and go to one of the most competitive events that I can possibly imagine.
Yeah. I do think it's going to...
Some will, obviously. Generalisation there.
I think the attitude shift is going to be interesting for the players, because you're going to have some players who are going to really push that strict reading of the rules, and unfortunately just about every tabletop game has the same issue in that you can't just read them.
No, that's it.
In
They're
isolation.
all open to interpretation and interaction and all of that kind of stuff.
And that's some of my biggest concerns about this monetization, because the attitude of players that I've seen online has been one of, oh cool, we're going to turn it pro, for lack of a better description, like esports, therefore we don't have to care about...
I think it becomes a different game.
Well,
if you look at what they're doing, the terrain is very, the tables are very different. The terrain is very different. The amount of time per turn is very different.
Yeah.
Like it has, in order to do this and to make it work, they've obviously put a heck of a lot of work into it in going through all of these kinds of concerns that we are having at the moment. I think they've spent a lot of time trying to work through those. But as a result of that, the game is, I believe, likely to be significantly different.
Well, obviously some of the changes they've made, I say obviously, in my opinion, the changes they've made directly are a result of them wanting to stream a whole bunch of this, because that's the other part, is that there's like the top 10 tables or something are being streamed. Now, for when you stream sports, for example, like here in Australia, when AFL, the Australian football, is being put on TV, the commentators know that when there's a goal, there's a certain amount of time for a reset. So there's going to be a commercial break that's going to feature 4 30-second ads. They know how long the breaks are in between the quarter times and half times. When a timeout's called, they know how many timeouts they're allowed to have, how long those last for, how many commercials they can fit into those. So I feel like this is them trying to push tabletop into that category where they can say, okay, cool, both players are getting 20 minutes for turn 1. And then both players are getting... So we know we can time it and commentate based on what we know is going to be happening. And when they get to the 5-minute break in the middle, they can run sponsorships, they can do like a halftime 5-minute chat, and then go back into it again. So it feels like there's a lot of restrictions being put in place to accommodate the media that attaches to it as well, not just for the convenience of players, because they've made some decisions that don't make sense from a gamer's point of view, but do, like I've just explained, make a lot of sense for a media outlet. So that's a really awkward one, and they've actually been pretty good. I've been raising questions on their Facebook page and sending them messages kind of going, can you explain this? Can you explain that? They don't know who I am. They don't know that I'm not going. But if...
You may go.
Well, at some point
Depends
I may
on
go.
how the
but
other events go, but yeah.
If I can raise these now and say, as a player, these are some of the questions I have, these are some of the concerns I have, then if I'm not the only one doing it, then other people, they might actually go, okay, you know what, that doesn't work. And they did make some small changes to the deployment side of the game. They were originally going to give you 5 minutes to deploy, and that was that.
Yeah.
And then people said, well, hang on a minute. What happens if I don't finish deploying?
Yeah.
And the response was, you have to deploy faster. The judge will help you deploy.
See, this, yeah. I really want to talk about that.
And that's it. Then you go, okay, well, there's 7 tables now that one judge is manning. And everyone's got the same deployment time.
Okay. Let's come back to the judges are there to assist players. I don't think it's a judge's place to be helping a player deploy.
No, and that's the thing.
And same with, sorry to cut you off, something that we spoke about, I actually can't remember what day it was, but, I think you said something like, if I was a judge in such and such, sure, I can help you work through and resolve games if it's in this particular army, but I'm going to struggle with these armies. Do you think it's a judge's place to be helping a player in a competitive game where there's $5,000 on the line? Should a judge be actually getting involved in that game? Like, there's no game of football where an umpire is going to come on and go, oh, that's okay. If you guys just move out the way, I'll just kick it because it'll be faster if I just do it for you.
Yeah, see, I was going to use a motorsport analogy where...
Whatever, I'm
the
sure
same sort of thing where...
Hold on, I'll change your tyres for you.
Well, that's exactly right. You guys are a pit crew. You need another guy on the other side of the pit crew.
Yeah.
I'll fill the tank. You guys get on and do the other stuff because that's the easy thing. I can do that.
Yeah. I just don't think that there should be a way that judges are actually... They should be called over if and when there is a need to have... having them around to make sure that everything's running the way that it should be.
Or even actively judging.
Yeah.
If they were there watching a game unfold and someone said their gun was strength 8 when in actual fact it was strength 7, then the judge can step in and go, no, it's not. But actively being involved in the game by rolling dice or helping move models or deploy models... First of all, it's not tenable when you've got 7 players per judge deploying at the same time.
Yeah, okay. You've got 14
and then
players,
you swap but also the reason that they want this is so that all the games get the same amount of time and the turns get the same amount of time. And that's just not going to work unless it's 1-for-1.
Yeah.
Because all it's going to take is you've got a judge on one table helping one orc player deploy, and there's another orc player somewhere else who's now behind time.
Yeah.
So then he runs over there to help them get sorted. But no, hang on a minute. There's a Tyranid player that's now behind, so we're going to run over there and help them.
And, I know nothing about sports, but I believe that when they play in big tennis matches, they have multiple courts going at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine having one judge between...
7 courts, yeah.
It just doesn't work. So, and of course you can rely on the players to go, oh, no, actually, that was foul, that was in, that was out.
Yeah.
When you've got $5,000 on the line... They're going to be, I don't know. I think that...
Less scrupulous.
Yeah, it's very difficult to be non-biased. And because you obviously believe that you're doing the right thing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the danger with this is going too quickly too
fast, too quick.
Yeah, trying to get to the destination too quickly because...
I worry about what it does to the game as well.
The other issue you also have, obviously, when you start trying to get lots of judges involved, if they're
Who are you going to judge? Who are you going to have to judge?
Well, and this is kind of what I was alluding to, is that if you've got 144 players, is what it works out to be, and you've got that means you're going to have around 20 judges, give or take. So those 20 players, because ultimately they will have to be players, have to know the game well enough and know the armies well enough and know the codexes well enough and have not a Rain Man style eidetic memory, but they're going to have to be up to date on everything and be able to make decisions that are supported
and know where stuff is in different codexes and that kind of thing.
But also they're going to have to be willing to stand up to those players, which is a whole nother trait and ability that some people just don't have. And we struggle with it as well because, we're human, but you have to be willing to do that and have those confrontations.
How about we say conversations?
Well, they start as confrontations. But then for those 20 people that are experienced enough, educated enough, understand it all,
why aren't they playing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you then potentially end up in a situation where you have a really well-known high-end 40k player, known in the community, who has a call made against them by a judge who isn't a personality within the community, who then loses a game, and then the community lynches the judge because, you ruled that wrong, because it's all going to be streamed. Now, I've been playing 40K a long time.
This is where it differs from esports. Esports, it's done on a computer, so
Yeah.
the parameters are already set. We're actually talking about real people.
And manual movements, and things get knocked over, things get nudged, things get, dice get rolled and knock things. Like, it's...
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of manual processes involved where... And I posted this up in this particular event's conversation and said, well, hang on, esports, you don't have any of these issues. And they've gone, no, but you can get, latency issues and ping issues with one person in the room having a 50 millisecond ping and someone else in the room having a 10 millisecond ping, so that they're in it, And I get that there are other challenges with esports in those sorts of things, but at the same time...
don't need judges.
Well, that's it. It's all still dictated by the game's rules, and unless you're hacking it in some way, shape, or form, which on a closed server should be all but impossible. You don't need judges because the judge is the game.
I feel like we're slamming this particular event, and that was not the purpose of this episode. The purpose was to discuss how adding a financial component to prize pools, what implications that has with the games. And
but it all ties together.
I know it all ties together. I'm just really trying to emphasise that the intention for today wasn't to get on here.
I'm really interested to see what the event looks like. I'm really keen to.
Yeah.
If I thought I could go, given it's your birthday weekend, it's not going to happen. But if I thought I could go, I'd be really interested in actually playing.
I guess where I was leading with our intention wasn't to slam this event, was what I've said on the last live stream that we do. I have real issues with the introduction of a chess clock.
Yeah.
And how that changes the feel of an event.
These guys are going one step further.
It doesn't feel like one step further. It feels like they have jumped off the canyon. Like it's no longer... There's no friendliness to an event at all.
I think that's why they've tried to include that sportsmanship thing. The problem is they've attached money to it. So it either becomes a popularity contest where someone wins money because everyone knows them in the room and they're cool, or there's some sort of weird arbitrary scorecard involved.
Well, you would imagine that the judges would have to do that. Well,
from everything I've seen, it's going to be scorecard driven by players.
Okay.
Which means that you're now getting a situation where you have a bad game. No, you're not winning $1,000 or whatever it is, zero. So you're actually putting more weight on that sports sniping component that can happen when you include soft scores, because normally it just stops someone winning an event. This is actually going to be a financial hit potentially. So, yeah, it's...
as you said, I'd be really interested to see how it works. I don't know of any other events around the world that have a financial component to their... I suppose...
There's two that I can name.
I was just thinking, even with the CanCon where they had the airfares, that
so
counts.
CanCon's sponsorship from Frontline Gaming lets the winner fly to Vegas for the LVO. I believe that going forward it's just going to be the flight. The first time they did it, I believe it was flights and accommodation, but I think going forward it'll just be the flight. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I've heard. But if you win the ITC Champions League, if you win the whole league, normally it's between $3,000 and $4,000. So one of the selling points that I've seen in the video for this event was we're giving away more money for our first prize for one event than ITC gives away for their whole season.
Yeah.
Which, I think there's every opportunity there for players to come out.
I mean,
and don't get me wrong, I reckon most of the players will behave exactly the same way. They'll be really cool and chill for 85% of their games, but all it's going to take is that, particularly those last couple of rounds where you're in the running for it.
Your first game, if you've got someone who's slow playing,
in theory they can't slow play if they're going to have these fixed times.
Yeah, true.
But no, like if someone is deliberately misunderstanding rules or misinterpreting things and dragging their feet, and the judges aren't available and all the rest of it, then you could.
Well, if the judges aren't available and you've only got 20 minutes for your turn.
Yeah, and like with the judging side of things, if there are 1 per 7 tables, Does that mean there are 20 in the room roving, or does that mean they're assigned tables?
Yeah.
Because that's two different things again. And that both of them
really
has
is.
pros and cons.
Yeah.
So
I guess I had imagined that, okay, the way that we run our events is that we have, rows of tables.
yeah,
So I kind of had imagined, okay, well, you're on row 1, tables 1 to 7. You're
Yeah.
on row 2, tables, 8 to 14.
but if they're not
type of thing.
assigned, then that is good and bad.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that it's better if they're not assigned. And, kind of like in the old checkout days where if you needed a supervisor, you turned your light on and somebody came over, could work, it could work relatively well.
It could, yeah.
So just a little tip there. Maybe they need to put some little lights
And-
above the tables.
And until all 20 judges are at one end of the room, and there's a whole bunch of people at the other end of the room who
with
need
their
support.
lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the attitude of players going into this event could go, two ways. It'll either be we're going to play this cool new event, they're going to be streaming this, and if I win, awesome. Or you're going to get players who take it way more seriously than anyone's used to seeing, and you're going to have verbal altercations on streams. You're going to have negative Facebook posts.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's every possibility of a lot of negativity coming out post-event where I was robbed because of
yeah.
X, Y, or Z.
I'm just thinking $5,000 for some people is a lot of money. $5,000 for other people isn't a huge amount of money.
No.
But I'd say it's significant enough to affect the way that people actually behave, or the attitude that people have towards the event. Not necessarily the way they behave, but certainly the attitude towards the event.
Yeah.
Where do you think that starts? Like if you have a $200 prize, do you think you're going to get the same amount of competitiveness?
See, I think the context of the prize matters as much as anything else.
Give me more words about that. What do you mean?
I mean, giving away cash fundamentally changes the perception than giving away a box set or 2 box sets or 5 box sets. Like if you turn around and go, I'm going to give you a $150 box set, or I'm going to give you $150 in store credit for my store, or I'm going to give you $150 cash, the cash is always going to bring the most controversy because I can spend that anywhere. Because I can use that to pay some of my mortgage, or I can pay my phone bill,
I
or
understand.
But that's what I'm saying is the threshold for when it's cash, for when it changes people's perceptions, is a lot lower than if you're giving out a box set.
So when it's cash, where do you think it starts?
Probably over $500.
Do you think?
Well, when you start talking about real world money, that's kind of when I would start looking at this. So at $500, that's a chunk of a mortgage payment. There's actual real life applications for $500. If you give away $50 or $100 even, $200 even in this day and age, $200 doesn't actually go that far when you start talking about family commitments and even hobby.
It does if you're 15.
Well, there is that.
It
But
does if you don't have a job.
my point is that for the guys who are competing for this event, for tournaments in 40K, you have to have some financial backing to have the models in the first place.
Yeah, that is true.
So $500 actually becomes real world money where there are applications for it in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, $500 is a holiday.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, or even, let's say use...
That's how I measure everything in holidays.
Well, let's use Atlanta as the example. If I flew to Atlanta, played and won, by the time I paid for my airfares and accommodation, I'm still up $3 grand,
yeah.
at least. And because it's US and I'm paying Australian, it might even be more than that. So in that sort of scope of things, if I thought I could win it, it'd make sense for me to do it because I'm...
That was where I was just going to go next. Like, do you think that... Where do you think the attitude is around, yeah, but chances of me winning are pretty slim? Like, if you're playing against the best that America's got to offer...
Well, that is another risk, isn't it? Because if you know that the top 16, top 8 on the rankings, and then another top 8 personalities are going for free. So your Sean Nadens, Nick Nanavardis, Alex Harrison, all of the named the personalities that have either won LVO or won Adepticon or Nova or whatever. or even some of the guys from the ETC and whatnot. Okay, cool. In a room of 144 players, 50% of them are those guys who are top threeing major events all around the world.
Yeah.
And I'm unranked, unseeded, and I'm going to play. Would that even put me off buying a ticket? I think, again, there's a chance.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on your goal and what you're going for.
I guess I'm trying to think if
your goal is to win $5,000, there's going to be 143 people disappointed.
Really disappointed, exactly. Yeah.
But even second place at $2,500, that, like, if I got to the final and didn't win, it becomes a free weekend for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically.
But for people living in America, obviously that's different.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, if you live in Atlanta,
it's costing you $200.
Yeah. If you live in California, it's still only costing you a few $100s. So I think the tipping point for Attitude Shift at a cash prize is lower than a box set or a store credit or something like that, to answer the original point.
All right, let's think about Masters. So for Masters, we generally have between 60 and 70 players attend.
Yep. So the biggest prize pool we've had for that event was about $1,600 worth of total prizes.
Yeah.
This year it'll be somewhere between $700 and $1,000, depending on how much we can take out of the tickets and what sponsors we get. Because it's the one, apart from show, it's been the one event we've actually gone out looking for sponsorships for.
Yeah. I guess I'm just wondering, what do you think it would do to that event if we made that one $250 a ticket?
Well, it's funny you say that, because it was actually something I've been talking about with you and with a couple of other players and going, okay, normally we'd charge $70 to $80 for a 2-day tournament, which is kind of the cost of being in WA. $40 a day is around about the minimum we can afford to charge.
Yeah.
And still give, little bits of prizes and trophies and medals and that sort of stuff.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
If we turn around and said, okay, instead of charging $40 a day, we're going to charge $75 a day, make it $150 for the event. And what's that going to do to attendance with such a high barrier?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So, say we did something like a Masters event and we made it $250, but $100 from every ticket went into the prize pool. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going, is when I was doing the maths, I kind of said, well, if we make it $150, I know what our costs are. So it leaves us with about $70 a ticket. If we get $50 from every player, and we go, okay, cool, we get 50 players, it's $2,500. And then we could say, okay, cool, so the winner is going to get a trip to Melbourne to play at the National Masters event. That's
different still, though. You're getting a trip. It's different to it being money. Do you think that we would... And Masters is a...
I certainly think it'd put people off in WA.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Masters is one of what we bill as our most competitive event, apart from WATC, but that's a different competitive event. So Masters we're already billing it as a competitive event, which is why I guess we're only getting 60.
We end up in the mid-60s,
players.
Yeah. It's also one of the few 2-day events we run.
Well, we've just proved with WATC that 2 days doesn't necessarily put people off coming.
No, that's true.
So, we're looking at that. If it's already a competitive event and then we add something like this to it, does it make the people who are just stepping out into formal gaming, who, hang out down at one of the Warhammer or Games Workshop stores, are they likely to come along to something like this?
See,
and is there a place for something like this in Australia?
I think with that sort of question, it's not necessarily the right question, because...
Right, thanks very much.
Well, no. I see where you're going with it, but I think it's a very multifaceted
it really is.
question. Because will it put new players off going? Yeah, look, it potentially does, but it also potentially does for different reasons. Because, first of all, the financial outlay is considerably more. Paying $40 for a 1-day tournament compared to paying $250 for a 2-day tournament is a big step. I don't know the community in Australia would wear that to begin with, just that significant increase. Even with the financial side of it, because I think it'll breed resentment. Because if you're...
My money's going to such and such.
Exactly. And if you
it was something that I already thought about with WATC. Like, I'm chipping in $10. I'm not going to see anything of it.
Well, and but this is the thing. I think players are okay when there's physical prizes and stuff, and they're still getting good experience. And, you know, we're building a prize pool where, cool, I'm going to get... Like, if I finish in the top 3, I'm going to get something back.
Yeah.
16 teams, top 3. Every team has a chance of that.
Not every team. Have you said... No, I'm just kidding.
When you are giving away cash, you are literally giving away your attendees' money. And I think that's the psychological difference. If we turn around and said, okay, we're going to take $150 tickets, we're going to get $50 from every player, we're going to put that into a prize pool, it's $2,500. But then we turned around and said, okay, cool, we're going to buy a $250 box set for the top 10 players each, and we gave those out on the day, I actually think it'd be more accepted by the community than if we gave every one of those
than if we just
players
like that, just gave that big prize pool to one player,
or if we gave $250 cash to the top 10 players, because then you are handing over your money to someone else. It becomes a gambling scenario.
Just out of interest, as a player who's been married for a very long time, and has a lot of financial commitments outside of playing games, would you prefer to win cash or prizes?
Again, a value. Value is important there, because, like that $5,000 for this event, if I called you up and said, "Hey, sweetie, I've just won $5,000, we're $3,000 up on this trip," then I would be okay with that going into our family life, because my trip's been free. It's not cost us anything. I've got to go and play games. I've got on the stream. I've got all this other stuff. I might turn around and say to you, "Hey, I'm buying this box set for the next army," and I doubt you'd say no. But ultimately, that's not like that's a boon for us as a family. Whereas if it was $500, then I'm actually more likely to want it as a box set or something. Yeah, that's
what I was thinking, because that way it's just for you.
Yeah. So again, I think there's a tipping point there with cash changing the attitude of players. I mean, you've just seen it happen with me just this second.
Well, that's why I asked, because that was what I was anticipating.
Yeah. So, you know, if you pay $80 for a ticket and come home with a $250 box, that's like, cool. Like, it's either a massive like you paid $80 for a $250 thing and you got to play for 2 days. Like, you got 2 days of entertainment, you got to hang out with your mates. Even if you went out for dinner and drinks each night, you're probably still net zero, depending on how much you drink and eat. So you're probably in a good space there where what you've forked out and what you've received, the value proposition is fine. Yeah.
So just on that, so as I said earlier, I hand over a beer like you wouldn't imagine. So often when we run events, I walk around with a drinks trolley and I go around to all the different tables and I'm like, "Did you want any drinks, snacks, raffle tickets? Did you want to order your lunch at all?" And go around. So towards the end of the day, people are sort of going, "Oh yeah, I'll get a raffle ticket. Oh, hang on a minute. I've only got $6 left. I can either buy 6 raffle tickets and I have a chance that I might win a $100 box set, or I can buy a beer and I know that I'm definitely walking away with a beer." I'm going to take the beer. So, so I guess it's an interesting thought there.
Like I say, I actually think a lot of this stems around the cash side of it. Cash changes things.
It does change things.
Because cash can be used for anything. And that's what I just keep coming back to. As soon as you offer other people's money to, like, and obviously everyone knows the only way these events get a prize pool is from the tickets.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way this works. But as soon as you go $200 a ticket, 144 players, you know, at that point, what we're talking, I can't even do the maths in my head at the moment.
I wasn't necessarily listening close enough to remember what you said.
Well, so this particular event has 144 players at $200 a ticket. You're talking just shy of $30,000 in ticket sales. They're giving away $10,000 of that guaranteed.
Yeah.
So they're essentially saying 2/3 of that is their costs. And you know what? I probably believe that.
Yep.
Even in America. I reckon that's probably a fairly safe number to guess, because 144 players is going to require 74 tables? 72 tables? Something like that?
I worked out before that it was 72.
And then, if you've got those 72 tables, we know that they roughly want 12 square metres each.
Mm-hmm.
So you're now talking about a venue that's going to be 1,000 square metres.
Square metres to allow
to make it, particularly for all the
and stuff like that.
But also streaming, because they've got 6 tables, 8 tables streaming.
Yeah.
Plus they need a space for all of their materials and stuff. So you're looking
and
at
TOs and
that's a big space. So hiring that's not going to be cheap. Insurance isn't going to be cheap. They're serving alcohol, so there's all the alcohol licenses and stuff.
And your gaming license.
So yeah, look, if they're getting 30 grand in ticket sales and they're giving away 10, yeah, they're probably giving away a good chunk of their profit, if not the majority of it. However, as soon as you put a cash number on that, I think it's going to make people go, "You're giving away my money."
Yeah.
As bizarre as that sounds, because the same thing happens when you give away box sets. It's just perception.
So right at the very beginning of this episode, we laughed again because the sky is falling, and this, and I said that often gamers don't deal well with change, and I'm realising perhaps I don't deal well with change either.
Chess clocks.
Yeah, well, no, that's exactly it. I'm really struggling with the idea of how chess clocks will change a game environment that we worked so hard to create this, where we don't have hardcore gamers, and to create an environment that is fun and relaxed and, all of those things. And what will chess clocks potentially do to that? And for me, the idea of adding money into that mix, it just takes it to a whole nother level.
I think...
And then, potentially we'll try it and find out that the sky actually isn't falling.
I think it's naive to think that adding cash to these events won't change the way players approach them.
No, but change isn't always bad.
No.
And maybe I need to change the way I'm looking at it and go, not saying that we're going to run an event with a $10,000 cash prize.
If you guys want to pay $200 a ticket, you let us know, and we'll see what we can do in terms of a cash prize.
Yeah, however, we do need more than 3 people to say
yes,
that
we
we'll
do.
do it. So, so what I was going to say is change doesn't always have to be bad. So say, for example, we did run something that had a significant cash prize. There's nothing to stop us actually really stripping down our calendar and going, okay, so we've got this hyper competitive event, because I can't see a way to run an event with a cash prize that isn't hyper competitive.
Yeah.
So we've got a hyper competitive event. Oh, I do want to come back to the idea of the judges as well, so please remind me. But what are ways that we can actually make sure that we're adding in some perhaps narrative events or events that have that real community relaxed feel to them, to make sure that we've got a balanced event schedule.
Yeah. And I mean, next year we've basically got one a month for the entire year.
Yeah.
So experimenting with varying that is completely doable and possible.
Yeah.
I like what we've done with WATC and guaranteeing a percentage of the ticket price in prize pool.
Yeah, and I think that we'll probably do
and
that going forward.
Yeah, that'll likely be a standard thing for us. Yeah. And depending on the event and the venue and all the rest of it, that number will vary between $5 and $15. Who knows?
Yeah. I also, so the other thing that I was thinking about was the idea of this having the judges. I honestly do not think that you should be running an event where people are paying $200 for entry and then expecting your judges to do that as voluntary.
Well, they did say that they were hoping to pay judges, but that was the sum total of there was no qualification or no clarification in regards to what that meant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we said earlier, getting judges for this event,
it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy.
It's not really a kind of game that you retire from.
No.
For example, in a sporting kind of analogy, if you...
But say a footballer hits 45 and says, yeah, I'm done, or earlier.
Yeah. Their body can't do it anymore. This is a game that you can actually play and, sort of...
your whole life, yeah.
Take it out in a cardboard box.
So Yeah, if they're gonna, and at that point, what's going to be a fair remuneration for them for the, and that's going to vary between country because a day's work in Australia compared to a day's work in America.
Poland.
Oh yeah,
it's certainly significantly different. And that money has to come out of how much you're charging people.
Yeah. Look, if they want to fly me to Atlanta to be a judge, I'll do it for free.
No, you won't.
Well, no, it's your birthday weekend, so I didn't think.
I don't care about my birthday. You are not going on another holiday without me.
So what I'm hearing then is, if you fly both of us over, we'll do the judging for free, and it gives me 3 months to get you 100% up to speed with everything 40K.
Yeah, we can make that work.
Okay. I'll send them a message after we get off air.
I'm sure they'll be dying to receive that.
Depends on how much they're paying the judges. If they're paying $1,000 each, they won't be. But
no, they won't.
You know, you're right. As soon as you need judges and you're paying staff, because again, when you actually talk about this particular event, there's staff costs. Assuming they pay the 20-something judges, you've then got the commentators on the stream. You've got all the techs running the stream in terms of the audio and the video. And
yes, but the streams should be their own income generating.
Yeah, you'd hope that they would generate income. Yes,
yeah.
But at the same time, you have to assume that they may not. So that money has to be budgeted for. There's a cost there somewhere, which means that ultimately, if you know you're going to get 30 grand in ticket sales, those numbers have to be accounted for then, rather than hoping that you're going to get 500 new subscriptions at $5 a month.
Well, even without that, as I said, you certainly, if it was me that was doing something like, with a stream, I would be looking for advertising, sponsorship, and doing it that way. Having people's logos on the screen, or, for example, where you've got your 5-minute breaks and things like that, having 30-second ads that can go into that, and having those for sale. The
problem is, of course, with those is you're either hamstringing yourself because you either got to go to Games Workshop and try and convince them to pay for it, which
not necessarily.
What ads are you going to put on it?
Gaming related ads,
like
OTP terrain, gaming stores. So not necessarily.
What my point is, though, you're talking small businesses at this point.
Yeah.
So, and this is something I've had a conversation with the guys at Down Under Network about. What do you charge? And then who produces the ad?
Having said that, it doesn't even necessarily need to be gaming related. Like, everybody needs a bed. Shoes. We talk about the fact that it's really important to wear good shoes when you're at a tournament. Get a shoe company to advertise on there.
But I think, though, to get those companies that are indirectly related is a bigger ask. Because you then have to, if you've got a champion within the brand that is a gamer, it's much easier to get over the line than just going to Nike and going, cool, give us these high-tech tennis gaming shoes.
When you've only got 144 people.
Yeah. So, that'd be awesome if you could turn around and go, cool, we're gonna have Nike sponsor us, and everyone's going to wear Nike shoes, and everyone's going to have a brand new pair of Nike tennis shoes to wear for the day.
Do Nike make tennis shoes?
I don't know.
Why have you started calling it Nike?
Because it's Nike.
It's Nike.
It's Nike.
It's Nike. Say Adidas.
Adidas.
Okay, that's all right then.
Adidas.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I really hope the Atlanta event succeeds, but I'm also skeptical it will. I'm also concerned it will.
You're concerned it will work?
Yeah. And that's partly because of the mechanics of the event itself. I'm not that concerned about the prizes. I'm concerned about all the extraneous stuff that they've changed to make it work in the format they've selected.
It's a very, very different game.
Well, one of the things I'd like to do once they release it for sale is buy one of their mats, buy one of their sets of terrain. No, bear with me.
Oh, no, I know what you're going to say.
And get it over here, put it up, and actually try it out with their time turns, with all their limits and everything in place. And actually see if it's a viable tournament format. Now, I think it's the most uninteresting map I've ever seen in my entire life.
The most uninteresting terrain I've seen.
Because
if that's the terrain that we want for events, that's no problem. I can whip up 100 tables of that in a week. It's not at the standard that you would like. It's not aesthetically pleasing.
Well,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
which at this point in time is the only opinion I have.
Yeah, so I think
Would work very well for people with a minimalist lifestyle, perhaps. There you go. That's someone who may appreciate this kind of terrain.
It's certainly, because it's the same terrain on every board, laid out the same way, the mat's marked the same way, it basically means that you could have the entire...
Boring.
Well, it means you could have the entire room take one table to their left.
Why would you even move?
Well, half of the room has to move, logically.
It's like speed dating.
Yeah. Speed 40k. Except what you'd have to do is you'd have to set up all the armies as well. So everyone plays turn one, then everyone moves one table to the left.
That's such a good idea.
And then you have to pick it up and play from...
I like that idea. Can we do that?
I would totally not do that.
I know, because you won't want anyone else touching your models.
Yeah, well, there is a huge level of trust, which is probably another episode's topic entirely. It's a cool idea.
I think it's a really cool idea.
It'd require a level of trust.
Okay, well, let's just do it with 12 people who you're really good friends with. Just see how it works.
We could probably do it at one of our mixed gaming days. Anyway, that's another topic.
It really is.
We're going to, as you can see, this is a very contentious issue for both of us, and we don't agree on everything. And
no, we really don't. As we bicker about everything.
Monetization for any hobby, which is, let's face it, every sport is a hobby. It started
that's
somewhere.
Where I was just going, like, you know, do you think that the monetization of soccer has made a difference to Little League?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, it has.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because now you get talent scouts looking for kids that are 8 years old and parents that are there pushing their kids to be the best because there are talent scouts looking for them, because then they can play for Arsenal and earn millions of pounds a year. I 100% think
I grew up with parents who didn't care about sport either. So, you know, we had to sit on the sideline because my brother cared about every sport. And interestingly, despite the fact that he grew up with parents who don't care about sport, he is an elite athlete and, you know, world champion. But it was never, I guess,
I do think
never focused on the talent scouts, I guess.
I do think there's a percentage of the population who definitely push children into those roles and like send them to training 5 nights a week, and because there's an opportunity for them later in life if they do well and are professional and blah, 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 blah.
I cannot think of anything worse.
So do I think that monetization has changed sport? Absolutely it has. At all levels of the game.
Do you think it has, or do you think that's just, like I said before, personality type? Anyway, going around in circles here.
So my point is, though, that the game is a hobby and every game starts that way.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that as some of the more eclectic parts of culture, like tabletop gaming, have slowly crept into the mainstream to some degree, like we've seen a lot of celebrities coming out talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and guys like Will Wheaton, you know, ending up on mainstream TV, and things like The Big Bang Theory. Ironically, where most, I suppose, self-professed nerds don't actually like The Big Bang Theory because it's...
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's why we're where we are today, where we're looking at these sorts of stumbling steps into that pro circuit.
And we've been talking about this for a year. So this isn't something new.
No, it's
just kind of going around in
but it's also the first time someone's actually had the financial backing, however they've managed it, to do it. Because ultimately, if someone came to us and said, we'll give you 50 grand and you guys can do what you need to do to get, you know, all the materials, all the resources, everything we need to run this sort of event, we could do it.
Yeah.
Whether the community accepts it is another matter entirely, because the community evolution might not be there yet for this event. It might be in Atlanta, it might be in America, but it might not be elsewhere. Who knows? I mean, CanCon giving away a trip to Vegas, the numbers went up, but it didn't go up significantly. I think it went up about 20-ish spots year on year.
Yeah. But you don't know whether or not that would have gone up anyway.
Exactly. There's no way of measuring that.
Well, I suppose we can look at historically, have the numbers been going up anyway?
They've kind of been up and down depending on the year. But
yeah, so that's exactly it. We could just be in an up year this year.
Well, also because wasn't the winner of CanCon, it was the winner of the Australian ITC League, which meant there was only 2 or 3 people
who were likely to
compete for it. Yeah.
as opposed to, as you say, it being the winner of CanCon and how that would have impacted it. So we don't really have any measure.
Yeah, and the same with ITC. We don't know if you win LVO. I think there's prizes and stuff, but there's nothing like the couple of $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what that means? And this is like I say, the first stumbling steps towards it'll either pass or it'll fail. My gut feeling is that there will be 144 people who will pony up the $200 to go, and then it'll be dependent on the event organisers to give the world exposure for that event, to show them that it's awesome, to show them that it's going to work. And, you know, if the event falls flat on its face, or the streams look terrible, or the games look boring, or, you know, that'll be a negative impact for them. There's so many variables. So,
look, I personally don't find any joy in watching any kind of gaming.
or sport.
Or sport, you're right. I'm not really a spectator kind of person. But the thought of watching a game on that board...
Yeah, the mat...
And every board is exactly the same. Like, it's not even like if you... Anyway. Just fill in the blanks of what I'm thinking. So I try and be positive, and I'm realising that I'm really not at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see what the results are. And
what that means for the community going forward after this event. It's the 6th, 7th and 8th of December this year, so it's not that far off. I believe the tickets are on sale already. I don't know if they've sold out, but I know that the tickets went up. I think
Have they got more followers yet?
I don't know. I know that I think the tickets went up on Thursday.
Okay.
But in obviously American time, so for us it would have been Friday lunchtime, give or take. So, you know, with a bit of luck, the community, I suspect it'll split the community to some degree, and we'll have a bunch of people who are happy with it, and there'll be a bunch of people who aren't happy with it, and it'll just take time for the community to decide whether or not they want to support that sort of event or not. But I'm sure... I would all but say I'm certain that it'll sell out.
Yeah, I'm sure it will as well. Like I say, it will be interesting to see how it goes. Okay, they've got
So at the moment, there are 41 tickets available.
Out of
140. Well, it was 128 for sale, and then 16 being offered for free. So I'm assuming this 41 is out of the 128.
Yeah.
So... that's Monday the 12th of August, time of recording.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we've kind of covered... I don't know that we've actually covered anything, but we've chatted about
the
impact of money.
Yeah, it's a hugely complex topic. So we'll share a link for the event so you can go and check out the map and missions and all their other bits and pieces, their terrain and so on, so you can check it out. I think it's going to be fairly polarising, where we've got players who don't want to come to events when they're ITC because it's too hardcore. I feel like this would hurt attendance again, potentially.
Yeah, as I said
but I'm
previously...
I'm looking at the mat at the moment on the screen, which... Yeah. As a player, bothers me. Not for what they're trying to achieve, but for what it looks like.
Yeah.
So... Anyway, we'll share links so you can go and make up your own minds and see what we're talking about.
I find it really interesting to see a hill made out of MDF.
I find it really interesting the fact that they've put a hill in it when there's no rules for hills.
Okay, yeah. We have hills, so I'm not saying anything.
No. Like, the rules for hills say it does essentially nothing. It blocks line of sight, but you don't get cover for standing on it.
Yeah.
And when I quizzed...
Why would you get cover for standing on it?
Because you used to. So...
How high is that hill?
Well, it depends. If you're on the bottom edge behind the hill and you're stood on the hill, then and you can only see the top of a model's head from the crest of the hill, they're 90% obscured. So people logically go, well, you can't see all of me, therefore I get a cover save.
Yeah,
the rules say you don't.
Yeah.
The way they've built these hills are more like boxes stacked on top of each other. So
it's very much more like a War Machine hill.
Yeah, which don't exist anymore.
Well, they do when we get them out of our tub.
Yeah, but War Machine have taken rules for hills out of the game now.
Anyway, so totally different topic.
It's it's definitely an interesting format for their terrain. So we'll see what they look like. They say they're going to paint it all, but I guess we'll see what the event looks like and watch the streams with interest and come back to you later in the year when we've seen it and got some feedback from players who've been.
Early next year, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's the end of that. We'll be back soon to talk about something else. But we don't know what it is yet.
And on that note, we'll wrap up. We'll be back in a second to wrap up the episode. All right, so after an hour of rambling, I'm not sure what you're going to get out of that conversation, other than that money in 40k is going to change the landscape for good, ill, or otherwise. We're not sure. We'll get back to you on that one. We'd love to hear what you think around prizes and money in 40k, in tournaments, organised play, not just 40k, for any organised play.
I'd be really interested to hear how it would impact your attendance and the way that you think that you would actually, I don't want to say how you would, what's the word that I'm looking for here?
I don't know. I'm actually interested to see, would a proper cash prize influence your attendance, and how much, like, is there a sliding scale of how much you're willing to pay for a ticket to determine how much money is on the line? Like, if we said it was going to be $1,000 for the winner, how much for a ticket would you pay? If we said it was going to be $5,000 for the winner, how much for a ticket would you be willing to pay? Based on the fact that we would have, say, 60 players in the room.
Do you actually want cash prizes?
Yeah. Or, are you quite happy not having to share that prize with your partner, family, loved ones, so you get a box set of some sort?
Get to add to your hobby collection.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of questions around this, and I don't think anyone's really got that information because this is all new territory for everyone. So
it is, but as I said before, we have been chatting about it on and off for at least the last year.
Well, since the sponsorship from LVO's flight from CanCon, when that was announced, that was when we started talking about things and doing stuff differently. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's one that I don't know there's an easy answer to, but if you've got feedback, you can email it to us. You can jump on our Facebook page and message it to us. You can leave it in the comments of this episode on Facebook. You can post it in the comments on the website, wherever you feel like leaving it.
Yeah, it all pings and tells us that you've left it.
Because it'd be really great to find out, is there some sort of sliding scale? Do you even want cash prizes? Do you think it's important to have one a year? Do you think no?
And how do you think it would impact the players who come along?
Yeah.
Numbers-wise or attitude-wise or anything, really.
Any concerns or feedback?
Yeah.
Because, we want to give our regular players exactly what they want. And if there's an interest in doing and testing something like this, then we'll look at the financial side of it and figure out how much we can afford to do with what and
how we go about getting a gaming license.
Yep. Because that'll have to be figured out and factored in.
Yeah. Maybe we look at doing something like it for show.
I don't know if show's the right environment for it.
I don't either.
I actually think that's probably one of the worst environments for it.
Oh, why is that?
Because show's about community. It's about sharing all the games and all the cool stuff. But at the same time, I know why you'd want it there, because you want to show it off and get some hype and excitement around it. So I do get why you'd want it both ways.
I don't know that in an environment like show that the two need to be mutually exclusive. I think you can still create the community through having all of the different clubs there and the demo games and intro games, that kind of thing, whereas the tournaments are still very separate anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that getting people to travel for an event like that is more likely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See, this is some of the weird conversations that come out.
Yeah.
I think we can leave it there, though. I think we've covered everything for today.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything else.
Mm-mm.
Right, well, on that note then, once again, congratulations to all the teams who participated in the ETC for 2019. Congratulations.
Who came last?
I have no idea.
Have a look. Because somebody has to come last.
Okay, so I'll start at the top and we'll run them down for all 36 teams.
Okay.
England, Russia, Poland.
Hold on, you didn't give me a chance to go, yay!
Go yay at the end. England, Russia, Poland, Australia,
Yay!
Denmark, the United States, Spain, Finland, Ireland, Germany, Belarus, France, the United Nations Team 2, Sweden, Greece, Canada, the Ukraine, the United Nations Team 1, Romania, Croatia, Turkey, Switzerland, Italy, the Netherlands, Wales, Scotland, Serbia, Norway, Hungary, Northern Ireland, Austria, Argentina, Belgium, Slovenia, Luxembourg, and then in last place, the Czech Republic.
Oh, yay for Czech Republic. Bringing up the rear.
Did not finish with a single win for the weekend, sadly.
Oh, that must be devastating.
Now, to be fair, I actually don't remember how regular the Czech Republic attendance is. Because they're the only team on here with 0 round points.
But it doesn't matter if you don't. So for people who are coming to WATC, there have been years where we've had teams who have finished with 0 round points.
We also had a team that finished on a perfect 0 for a round. They got
no points.
6-20-0 losses.
Yeah. And that is completely fine. It is, as I said, somebody has to come last. And I don't know if we've got 6 of the dice left to give out for last place, but I think it's good to celebrate the people who bring up the rear.
I also have to congratulate Sean Naden from Team USA for ETC. He went a perfect 6 for 6 and 120 out of 120.
Wow.
Which is a huge achievement at this particular event. The highest ranked Australian on 6 wins was Liam Hackett from Queensland on 104.
So he only dropped a couple of points, didn't he?
Out of 120.
Points, yeah.
Yep. Did very, very well. But more importantly, in 24th on 5 wins and a loss, and a total of 95 points out of a possible 120, was WA's own Jake O'Grady from Beyond Games on Hobbies. So congratulations to Jake on an amazing run there. Rocky start. I don't know whether he was bust for round 1, but it was a lost round 1 and then he won every other game. And the last game he won would have been harrowing. So he did really well. And 95 out of 120 is a huge result. Yeah. So well done to him.
If you're watching the live stream that we did do on the 11th of August, we did sort of talk about the fact that it's difficult to look at the individual scores and look at the numbers that are attached to them because of the way that a team scoring works. There's all the interactions that go with it. So WA's Pete Platel didn't necessarily get
as many points as some of the other players.
Yeah, because he didn't just take one for the team. I think he took multiple for the team.
Yeah, looking at the process for the matchups, it certainly feels like Pete was given the dirty end of the stick.
Yes.
More than a couple of times.
Short end of the stick we'll go with.
He had a rough weekend. He epitomised the taking one for the team motto, because there were probably 4 games at least that I know of where that would have been, Pete, can you please suck it up? And
yeah, but by putting somebody in to take the least favourable matchups, it means that you've got other players who are available to
and that's team strategy.
Yeah.
So
and that'll be what our next episode is actually going to be on. That's our intention at the time of recording.
Yep.
To go through some of the lists for the WATC and talk about some of the team strategy that goes with that.
Well, what we should do then is record that before WATC if we can.
Yeah.
Like do a part 1 and part 2 so that I can
do that on Wednesday.
So I can give some suggestions on. We'll look at the patrons lists.
Yep. And
maybe look at some of the matchups, and then we can publish it after the event.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you want to follow, like, and share and all the other stuff, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter,
everywhere.
All that usual stuff. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can join us on our Patreon page.
Since we spent all this time talking about money.
Look, you know what? We've got some amazing patrons who help support us every month. And if you feel like joining us in that environment, there's an extra podcast there. There's we release like behind the scenes bits and pieces and funny videos and audio clips and stuff from our recording processes.
Do we?
Oh yeah. This is why you don't have a login for it.
Oh dear.
Yeah, private Facebook groups and those sorts of things as well. So if you feel like joining us, you don't have to. We understand that not everyone can support everyone financially, but if you feel the need, by all means, go and check it out. It's Patreon/Objective Secured. Patreon.com/Objective Secured. Otherwise, we'll see you at WATC 2019.
Say hello.
Yep.
We'll be there.
and hopefully we can get some recording and some live stuff done, and then we'll chat to you in 2 weeks' time in episode 49. Before we do episode 50, 50 has to be
That's the
something
way
important.
it works.
No,
boy.
50,
I know.
50 has to be important. I don't know what we're going to do for 50. I might try and get a guest.
Okay.
Any suggestions for a guest, let us know in the comments as well. Until then, though, guys, enjoy, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Take care. Happy gaming, everyone.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.